All right, all brothers remove their head coverings. All sisters pray with their heads covered. And we face the east towards Jerusalem. Elder Mikael, can you go ahead and open us up with prayer, please?
Heavenly Father Yahweh, whose true covenant Elohim, Abraham, Yishak, Yaakov, give you thanks and all praise in Yeshua's holy mighty name, Father Yahweh. You deserve all glory, Father Yahweh, in Yeshua's name. Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to make it together, Father Yahweh, so we can hear your word, Father, and profit from your word, Father. Let our hearts sing, Father Yahweh, of your word, Father. Let our minds reel, Father, because of your word, Father Yahweh. Let us understand your word, Father, and be doers of your word, Father Yahweh, because we need you so much, Father, to walk in this world, Father Yahweh. Father, we have people that attack us left and right, Father. Spirits that attack us, Father, left and right, Father Yahweh. We know, Father, these things will happen, Father Yahweh. Your son went into the desert 40 days to be tested, Father, by the enemy, Father Yahweh. So we cannot walk from this, Father Yahweh. We know this is going to happen because it happened to our Mashiach, Father Yahweh, your holy and mighty son. So we give you thanks and praise, Father, for the opportunity, Father Yahweh, to hear your word, Father, and to be nourished by your word, Father, and to learn ways, Father, to combat the situation, Father Yahweh. So we ask thanks in Yeshua's name, Father Yahweh. And we ask, Father Yahweh, that your angels, Father, is coming and encompass around us, Father Yahweh, and strengthen us, Father, and minister unto us, Father Yahweh, by your word, Father Yahweh. We ask, Father, our brothers, Father Yahweh, to speak your mighty word, Father. We do your will, Father, and do your classes, Father Yahweh, to teach us, Father Yahweh, how to combat the word, how to combat the enemy, Father Yahweh, and how to be sustainable, Father, in your word, Father, content in your word, Father Yahweh. So we give you thanks and praise in Yeshua's holy and mighty name for your love and your kindness toward us, Father. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, Shabbat Shalom. My name is Yedan Yasharah. My brother Yonatan Yasharah. Shabbat Shalom. And the title of today's Shabbat study is Removing the Veil, and Veil spelled V-A-I-L, of Darkness. Removing the Veil of Darkness. And, as we understand, everything starts in darkness. Darkness was here first, Hoshek. We also understand, with the lunar cycle, you have the dark phase first. Also with, a child being born, they're born in darkness. Their eyes are fused shut. They don't receive that light. You plant a seed in the ground. We also understand Yahweh dwells in the thick darkness. So there's a purpose for darkness. But at some point, you have to come towards the light. So we're going to focus on how to prevent ourselves falling into that spiritual slumber and that darkness, and to how to gravitate to more towards light and act in a way that can keep us in the light. So we're going to open up first in Bereshit, Genesis, chapter 1. And we're just going to read 1 through 5, and we're going to take a look at light and darkness in the beginning. And that's what Bereshit means. It means in the beginning. Shabbat Shalom, Brother Andre Stinson. Bereshit, Genesis, chapter 1. And we're going to read just verses 1 through 5.
In the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep.
All right, so Hoshek, darkness was on the face of the deep. So darkness was here first. Go ahead.
And the spirit of Elohim moved upon the face of the waters. And Elohim said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And Elohim saw the light, that it was good, and Elohim divided the light from the darkness. And Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day.
All right, so this was the creation on the first day. Darkness and light was separated. If we look at that word for light, the Hebrew word they used was oreh, which is H216. Oreh, spelled O-R. And that's from H215, illumination or luminary, in the sense of including lightning, happiness, bright, clear, daylight, morning, sun. And the word that they use for darkness is H2822, Hoshek, spelled C-H-O-S-H-E-K, Hoshek. And that's from H2821, the dark, hence, or literally darkness. So it's literally darkness, but then also figuratively, it's misery, destruction, death, ignorance, sorrow, wickedness, darkness, night, obscurity. So if you don't have the light, which is also figuratively also this word, the presence of the Most High, the life in man, then you have darkness, which is figuratively going to be your misery, destruction, death, ignorance, sorrow, chaos, things of that nature. So there was chaos in the earth. It was dark. There wasn't the word. There wasn't the light. Then Yah said, "Let there be light." And light was created on the first day.
Verse 7.
And also, we stopped here at verse 5. Okay. And also, he separated this light from this dark. So he created from the beginning a separation from light and dark. So from this creation, light and dark cannot dwell in the same place at the same time. One is going to either push the other one away, or one is going to absorb the other one. All right, so let's go to Bereshit chapter 3, Genesis chapter 3. And we're going to read verses 1 through 15. So once light has been introduced into the darkness, the light is supposed to light up the darkness. It's supposed to expose things, allow you to see things, allow things to be manifested. So when the light is approaching an area and it's not lighting up the place and darkness is taking over something, it's going to cause a problem. Because that's not how it's supposed to be. When light comes in the area, it's supposed to push away the darkness.
Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 3 and verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which Yahweh Elohim had made. And he said unto the woman, Has Elohim said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, You shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said unto the woman, You shall not surely die. For Elohim does know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise. She took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat.
All right, so we know this story, and this is a problem. First of all, every time you have a conversation with the adversary of the devil, that's a waste of your time. He's not going to tell you anything that's going to help you. He's not trying to produce life in you. He's trying to trick you and to think that you have enough knowledge to sit here and argue with the adversary of the devil. You don't. You ain't going to know scripture the way he does. So at the end of the day, you can't sit here and argue with an adversarial spirit. You say what you need to say as far as whatever the commandment was, and you move on. Just like Yahshua gave us that example in Matthew 4. He gave the commandments and moved on. I don't have to explain anything to you or make a discussion with you about it, because at the end of the day, you tell me go left, Yah says go right, end of discussion. What is there to discuss? I don't have to tell you why he said go right, because at the end of the day, he said go right. So what other knowledge do we need about that? So now here you have the situation where the adversary is now picking on the weaker vessel, the woman who's hearing it from the man. She didn't hear the instruction directly from Yah. So when you didn't hear something directly from somebody, it leaves a little bit more room for things to be clarified, because you weren't there. You didn't hear the tone. You didn't hear the words. You didn't hear you didn't feel the fear that Adam would have had in dealing directly with the Most High. So he's taking advantage of that, and he's saying this is going to be pleasing to your eyes. It's a tree to be desired to make one wise. So at this point, she had the knowledge that, hey, Yah said, don't eat of the fruit in the middle of the garden, in the midst of the garden, the tree of the life, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Don't eat of that fruit. So that was enough knowledge for her to get by. But for some reason, because of the eyes, because things look appealing to the eyes, it'll put us in a state where we feel that knowing the right thing to do is not enough. All this other knowledge that looks appealing and interesting and to be desired is more important than the knowledge of obedience. And that's where it becomes a problem, when we start to push the knowledge of obedience to the side to chase this other knowledge that seems to look interesting. Go ahead.
Verse 7. And the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons.
All right. So again, the man ate too. He heard directly from Yahweh that he should not eat of the tree in the midst of the garden. But yet he still did it. And this is how we operate, the human nature. We're not supposed to do something. You see somebody do it, they get away with it, just like at work. And this is why the Most High had to make examples out of his leaders. Why he had to chasten his leaders very hardly, because when people see the person who's in the forefront and they get away with it and there's no judgment, then people start feeling, well, okay, we can do these things. We can get away with these things. So there had to be a punishment. So when he did eat, he was the one that heard the commandment. Their eyes were open. They both knew that they were naked. And this is symbolic of now that you know that you are not covered because you have now transgressed the law. You know that you are now naked. You have lost your spiritual covering because you are now in transgression. And now you're going to seek to cover yourself. You're going to seek to do things on your own. And that's the problem there in itself as well. We trying to seek to do things on our own, to cover ourselves. When at the end of the day, the covering is this word, is the Mashiach. That's the covering. You got to go back to the thing that caused you to be naked in the begin with. Go ahead, brother.
Verse 8. Mm-hmm. And they heard the voice of Yahweh Elohim walking in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahweh Elohim amongst the trees of the garden.
All right, so then here's the next step. So they tried to cover up what they did wrong. They realized what they did made them naked. They tried to cover it up. Let me cover it up with something. Anything that's not going to be sufficient, but it's the best that you can do. So they covered themselves up, made aprons. Now they hear the law, the word coming. They hear the Most High coming. Now they're hiding themselves from the presence of Yah. And this is what we do when we step into the darkness and this veil of darkness is over us. That light comes. We running from the light now. Now we hiding. Go ahead.
Verse 9. And Elohim called unto Adam, and he said, Where are you? And he said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, who told you you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree whereof I commanded you that you should not eat?
All right, so the Most High is doing like how parents do. When you walk in your room and you see these little footprints coming out the kitchen because they done knocked over the flour trying to get cookies and stuff, and you like, who did this? There's only one child in here. Who did you go in there and try to get the cookies? Well, you know, he's asking you to see if you are going to tell the truth. He already knows what you did. And he called out unto Adam. That's another point. If you're going to sit here and blame the woman for something, why is he calling out to Adam? He's calling out to Adam because I gave you the instruction. I told you what you were supposed to do. Go ahead, brother.
Verse 12. And the man said, the woman whom you gave to me to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. And Yahweh Elohim said unto the woman, what is it that you have done? And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat.
And he's saying in verse 12, the woman who you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. So you blaming Yahweh for your transgression. The woman you gave me, if you didn't give me this woman, I wouldn't have ate of this fruit. So instead of taking responsibility, he said, have you eaten of that tree? That's what Yahweh asked him, point blank. He didn't ask him, how did you get it? This, that. He said, have you eaten? The answer should have been, yes, I ate. I shouldn't have ate. Please forgive me. You know, I repent. How can I restore this situation? But instead, he turned around and blaming Yahweh for giving the woman, because he blaming the woman secondary, because he blaming Yahweh first for giving him this woman, and then blaming the woman for giving him the fruit to eat. So this shows you what's in man's nature alone, because this is the first man. So this is what your flesh is going to want to do. And this is why we have to get back to the light, remove from the darkness and get back to this light, to this word, and try to find out the proper way of dealing things, because your flesh is going to try to do anything to avoid some kind of evil or some kind of recompense or chastening or anything that is unfavorable to the flesh. Go ahead.
Verse 14. And Yahweh Elohim said unto the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon your belly shall you go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. It shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel.
All right, so that enmity, again, light and dark can't dwell together. If you allow the spirit of the adversary, the devil, to possess your vessel, then you are of the seed of the serpent. If you allow the light to stay in your vessel, then you are of Yahweh Elohim. So those two things are going to be separate, again, because of the beginning where it said light and darkness was separated. So you have this separation here. And interesting, when you look at the makeup, the physical makeup of the snake, you can actually see in the skeleton of the snake places where there would have been legs on a snake, all the way into now. All right, let's move on. Let's go to Yohanan, John chapter 1. So once we have committed sin, we have allowed this darkness into our lives. And that darkness puts a veil over our heart and over our eyes and how we make decisions. And we have to find a way out of that. And the only way to find our way out of that is to look for that narrow path, which is that light, to lead us, to guide us. So once we have become that, we have to now be brought back from the darkness back to the light. And there's only one way to do that. Shabbat Shalom, Sister Tiffany Watkins, and Shabbat Shalom, Aunt Melvin Shelley, and Shabbat Shalom, Sister Ariel Smith.
John, Yohanan, chapter 1. We'll begin at verse 1.
Are you there yet, sis? All right. And we're going to read this through verse 17.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. The same was in the beginning with Elohim. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men.
All right. So this light that was there in the beginning, that was made on the first day, is the light. It is the life, which is the light of men. That's different from the light that was created on the fourth day. On the fourth day, you have a different type of light. Go ahead.
And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was a man sent from Elohim whose name was Yohanan. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lights every man that comes into the world.
All right. So he was sent to bear witness of that light. We know that's Yohanan the Baptist. And we know that light is this word, which was made into flesh, the Mashiach. Well, that's the same thing that we do. We are also supposed to bear witness of that light. That's why Yah says, you are my witnesses. Yasharal, you are my servants. You know this light. You understand this word. It was given to you. It was presented unto you.
You know, the interesting thing is that we see that Satan always shows up when something pivotal is about to happen to like try to thwart the plan. And we saw when he presented himself to Yahshua, and we could see how when he presented himself to Adam and Eve. And a while ago, I'm thinking like, what could Yah have done? Couldn't he have like restored them to righteousness at that time? Like, you know, done something to, like, was it Yah's will to restore them to glory? And if not, what could have been done to restore them to that original state, or the original state of awareness, or that original state of innocence that they had when he first created them? And it was like he couldn't. The thing that rang to me was that scripture about, you know, let the wheat and the tares grow together. But it's like Adam's lineage wasn't yet born, and the issue was that the same way when Yahshua was being tempted, something great was supposed to happen based on him being there. That if Satan was able to overthrow the plan, he'd be winning something.
Right.
So that beginning with Adam and Eve, it wasn't just Adam and Eve there, but all his loins. You feel me? All of humanity. So when the enemy showed up, like, nah, I'm gonna get my stake in this war right now at the beginning. It was like he caused all of humanity to be subverted right there at the beginning when he did caused humanity to sin spiritually against Yah Elohim. So now all of humanity has to liberate themselves, and it wasn't just, he couldn't do it right at Adam, because the purpose was for all of humanity to have existence and to populate the world. And if the enemy was able to pollute it at the beginning, it's like, I guess Yah knew that all the seed has to go through that deliverance now, knowing that the enemy will be there to pervert them every step of the way.
Right.
He polluted the seed.
Go ahead, Elder.
I believe you're correct in that, brother, because Adam and Eve made a choice. Didn't realize they made a choice, but they made a choice, even though they were totally innocent. Adam knew what Yahweh told him, and Eve was supposed to follow what Adam was supposed to tell her. So yes, he did make a big mistake. She made a mistake, but then they made that choice, and Yahweh's trying to tell us now that we have a choice to make. Choose between life and death. So Yahweh still had to address that thing. And then the enemy, you know, he put his foot at God, you know, and destroyed the innocence of his children. But since his children made that choice, now you have to play the role out. Because now, later on, you have to understand the mistake that you really did make. How many dominoes that you did just knock over? You know, maybe it was 4 different commandments that they broke right there. But still, it's more than that. Because now your children, as you said, the line is in jeopardy right now. Now they have to make a decision down the line, are you going to follow the Father or not? So now we have to go through all these different trials and tribulations to see, we used to say if the cream gonna come to the top, to see if you're gonna follow or not. So how many of his children are going to go through these trials and tribulations, fall on their face, get up, but still stand the course against the enemy? Now we have to go through harder things than that to fight to prove ourselves that, yes, we heard Yahweh called us, because we couldn't come to him unless he called us, but are we going to stay the course and listen and do the obedience that Adam and Eve should have done in the beginning?
Right.
So now we have to deal with that obedience too. So I'm glad you said that like that, because yes, we have to follow where our father and mother failed. We have to walk that path to get back to the Father in obedience.
Right. When you had the adversary tricking Adam, you have an issue of, well, actually, he tricked Eve. Adam was just pure out disobedient because Adam heard it. He tricked Eve. Eve heard it from somebody else. But when he caused that, he introduced that darkness wasn't supposed to be there. It was removed. It was separated. When you look at the Garden of Eden, what that's saying, the garden is saying that this is the hedged part of Eden. Eden was a whole area. They were in the hedged part. So light and darkness was separated. And you have the adversary, the devil, was the covering cherub. He's supposed to be covering this word. He's supposed to be protecting it. But instead, he used his opportunity of being close to try to introduce darkness into the garden. And when he introduced that darkness into that, now this caused a problem because it's now been introduced. And now they've taken of this fruit, which has also brought even more darkness in. So you can't just correct that like that, for the simple fact that when they had it in the beginning, they had a choice. They could have said no. So you can't just correct that, because there's still that underlying problem of man still chose to be disobedient. So like you said, from that point now is an interview process. Which one of you are going to be the seed that of the adversary, the devil, or the seed of Adam? Right. Which one, the seed of life or the seed of death? And you're going to have to make that choice, because I chose life for you. And I chose that for you. Death wasn't even introduced yet. But you chose to, for whatever reason, Adam decided to follow his wife, which I don't know. Maybe there's more to that story. But we know the woman chose it for she was tricked, and because of the lust of her eyes, and it was something to be desired. But Adam, on the other hand, he didn't have to do that. So from this point forward, all humanity, Adam means man in Hebrew. So all man from this point forward has to make that decision. Do they want to remove that veil of darkness? Or do they want to stay in the darkness and please the flesh for the temporary period? Go ahead, brother.
Verse 7. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lights every man that comes into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. But as many as received him, to them gave he the power to become sons of Elohim, even to them that believe on his name.
All right, so as many that receive this light, it gives man the power to transform from darkness into the children of the light, to be sons and daughters of Elohim. But this can only come through the word. This can only come through the light, which was here in the beginning, which we're reading, the light that lights up every man in the world. You can't bring that darkness in. Go ahead. Start in verse 12 again.
Verse 12. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of Elohim, even to them that believe on his name, which were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of Yahweh.
All right. So the power to become the sons of Elohim, even to them that believe on his name. This is talking about Yahshua. On his name. Because when you believe on his name or you believe on his Shem, his character, the character of Yahshua, you're saying Yah is salvation. Yah salvation. So when you believe Yah is salvation, this is your salvation, then you understand his word, these commandments. I have to go through this word. So in doing that, that's believing on his name. That's believing in his character and his Shem. You can't get that with a Jesus because that doesn't mean anything. You're not saying anything with that. But when you do that with the Yahshua, you are believing that Yah is salvation. And this is what gives you the powers to become sons and daughters of Elohim, because once you believe that, you start to act according to that. And now you're beginning the process of removing that darkness from your life.
Verse 14. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Yohanan bare witness of him and cried, saying, This was he of whom I spoke. He that comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me.
All right, because again, we read that in the beginning. In the beginning was darkness over the deep, and then Yah said, let there be light. And he spoke words. He spoke that, which is a word. And now you understand that this word is powerful. The word that he spoke is also this light. The light was created by the word, and he spoke this word, and he's saying here in the beginning was the word. And the word was with Elohim, and the word was Elohim. All right, let's go to Yeshayah.
Brother, can you get into that first verse a little deeper? Because a lot of people are using that certain verse right there as saying that Yeshua, or their Jesus, is
Right.
God.
It's the same thing. Right.
Worshiping God.
Right.
You know, so I would like that, looked into a little further, because the word was with Elohim and was Elohim. The word was Elohim.
Right.
Then he made the word flesh.
Right.
And this word right here was subject unto the Father.
Mm-hmm.
People don't understand that.
He says it himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was subject unto the Father. I mean, the word had to come and do what Yahweh said it had to do. It had to perform its purpose. Just because it came from Elohim doesn't mean you worship the word. You worship the word in the sense of Elohim sent it to us
Right.
as truth.
Mm-hmm.
But people are taken to be out of context when Yeshua is telling you that he gives all glory to his Father. He prays unto his Father.
Right.
He doesn't pray to himself.
Right.
So why do people have the understanding of praying to the Son?
Mm-hmm.
Can you expound on that a little bit?
Right. Well, just even how it's written. First of all, when you see in the beginning was the word, it's all capital. It starts with a capital. That lets you know it's a pronoun. It's speaking of a person, right? So in the beginning was the word, and the word was with Elohim. You don't tell yourself, who you went to the movies with, who you was with. Oh, it was just me and myself. Mm-hmm. You do that to be funny, but you know that there's only one person there. But if you with somebody, that means there's somebody else with you. So that's what he's saying. This person was part of Yahweh, but was with Yahweh. So it's separate entities. And then if you just get into the New Testament, he tells you, why are you calling me great? Ain't nobody great but my Father above. Don't call me great. He's letting you know the order. And he said, these words aren't mine. These are my Father's words. So he's letting you know that, look, I'm not me. I belong to my Father. My Father is who created me. So I don't even belong to myself. I belong to the Most High, because he is the supreme spirit above everything, the master spirit, the source of all energy. So when you're saying that Yahshua is God, or they use the word Jesus, yeah, he's Elohim, Adonai Elohim, the master Elohim, but he's not Yahweh Elohim, which is above everything, the creator, the source of everything. And that's a common Christian mistake, because they don't understand Yahweh. They don't understand Yahshua. They going by the Greek deities, Jesus. Yeah. So this is what was made. They wanted to replace Zeus with a sun spirit, which was going to be the fullness. All the fullness was going to be in the sun, and they created Jesus or Aizus, and they made him God. And that was the principal spirit that the principal deity that they decided to make. So they, again, these Greeks and these other cultures didn't have the spirituality that we had. So they had to grab and rob and take from ancient Babylonian and Egyptian and all these melanin cultures, and they had to grab from that and create something for themselves, and they just changed the names of them. All right, actually read that through verse 17.
All right. Verse 16. And of his fullness have all we received, and grace for grace. For the law was given by Moshe, but grace and truth came by Yeshua Mashiach.
All right. Let's stop there. Let's move on. Let's go to Isaiah, Yeshayah, chapter 8. And we're going to read 1 through 22. Isaiah, Yeshayah, chapter 8, and we're going to read 1 through 22. You know, just on that whole Adam and Eve thing, I just remember that whole story, that the way that story is being presented, you know, especially involving our women. You know, a lot of the, you know, older camps, they like to use that story to bash our women. Yeah, and it's like, if you were preparing the story that way, you're just exposing your heart. Because that means you doing the same thing in your real life. You trying to blame the woman for your downfall. But you in control, you the head. You can't blame the woman. You got a choice. You the one that can write a bill of divorce. You the one that can not take somebody to be your wife. You the one that's in control. That authority is yours. You have to give up that authority to a woman to control you. Mm-hmm. You have to give her that. She can't control you. You in control. So whether you allow something or you don't allow something, when something goes bad, that's your fault because you're the head. Now, that doesn't mean that it was all your fault, like you did everything, but you the head. Yahweh, when a owner comes to see what's going on with his company, he goes to the manager. He goes to the person in charge. He talks to them, what's going on. But I'm holding you accountable. That's why I removed you and put you as the head, so I could have somebody accountable for what's going on. So they like to use this story because the woman took up the fruit. But Adam could have said, wait a minute, no, what are you doing? Why you took that fruit? You're a rebellious woman. Give me this fruit. Yahweh, this rebellious woman right here and did this, or however he wanted to approach it. He didn't have to do it himself. So he chose. Like I said, she was tricked. She wasn't there in the beginning. He's playing on the fact that, did he really say that? Did he really? Is your husband telling you the truth is basically what he's trying to say. Or is Yahweh lying? Or is your husband lying? Adam was there. He heard it. He was in the garden longer than her. It took time for Eve to come into the garden. She wasn't there right away. You know, so you got to be careful with that whole trying to blame the women for stuff when we're supposed to be a community that's patriarchal, where the father is the head. And then when the father gives up his daughter, then the husband becomes the head. And this same very issue and that same story made me leave an assembly. Yeah. Because the brother said, man, everything was all great until the garden, until we gave up that rib. Where you saw that? Where you saw that? Because in here it says it was not meet for man to be alone. So that shows me the manner of spirit you dealing with. So we got to be careful with that in our communities, man, because our women need us to protect them and be heads and coverings, not to be using them as scapegoats. Right, and that's what they always trying to accuse us of, because we establish order. Order is one thing. Misogyny is a whole nother story. Being misogynistic, whole nother story.
Yeshayah, Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 1. Moreover, Yahweh said unto me, take you a great roll and write in it with a man's pen concerning Maher Shalal Hashbaz. And I took unto me faithful witnesses to record Uriah the priest and Zechariah the son of Yeberechiah. Mm-hmm. And I went unto the prophetess, and she conceived and bare a son. And then said Yahweh unto me, call his name Maher Shalal Hashbaz. For the child shall have knowledge to cry, my father and my mother, the riches of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria shall be taken away before the king of Assyria. Yahweh spoke also unto me again, saying, For as much as this people refuses the waters of Shiloah, that go softly and rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son, now therefore, behold, Yahweh brings up upon them the waters of the river, strong and many, even the king of Assyria, and all his glory, and he shall come up over all his channels, and go over all his banks. And he shall pass through Yehudah, he shall overflow and go over, he shall reach even to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of your land, O Emmanuel. Associate yourselves, O you people, and you shall be broken in pieces. And give ear, all you of far countries. Gird yourselves, and you shall be broken in pieces. Gird yourselves, and you shall be broken in pieces. Take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for all is with us. For Yahweh spoke thus to me with a strong hand, and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, Say you not a confederacy to all them to whom this people shall say a confederacy, neither fear you their fear, nor be afraid.
And Yahweh is dealing with Israel and northern Israel and their affinity to try to cleave on to the other nations for help when they're being chastened for not keeping these commandments. So they're, Remaliah's son and Rezin, I believe that's Syria that they're talking about, that they're trying to be confederate with. And he's letting them know, listen, any of you make confederacies with these other countries instead of dealing with this punishment that I'm putting on you, and repent and coming to the source of the problem. Coming to Yahweh and saying, listen, I need to repent. I need to change my actions. I'm in darkness right now. I'm not walking according to these commandments. Show me where the light is. But instead, while Yahweh is allowing these other nations to come against us, we trying to run to another nation for help against the punishment that Yah is sending our way. And Yah is saying, in these other countries, you make confederacy with that too. You're going to get dealt with. Go ahead.
It's Assyrian.
Mm-hmm.
It's Assyrian Israelite.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 13. Sanctify Yahweh of hosts himself, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling and for a rock of offense to both the houses of Yasharal, for a gin and for a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem.
So again, sanctify, separate Yahweh of hosts. Keep him separate from everything else. Keep him to yourself. Don't worry about fearing man, fearing countries, fearing, these evil spirits. Nah, fear Yahweh. Let him be your fear and your dread. And if you sanctify him, which separate him, that master spirit, from all these other spirits that are trying to get into the mix, then he shall be for you a sanctuary. He shall be a safe place for you. But for a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense for everybody else that does not want to do that. So that's how this word can be. This word can be that foundation for you that you can build a strong house on, that can keep you stable, that stop your house from being, pulled away in the rains, in the wind, in the floods. Or it can be the same stumbling stone that you're tripping over, constantly tripping over, like what we were just talking about before the class. When people are too Torah focused only and don't use the entirety of the book, it can be a stumbling stone for them. Or it could be the stone that you get stoned with. But if you sanctify him in your heart and depend on him alone and stop trying to cover yourself, stop trying to find a way to fix your own situation when this is a spiritual problem you're dealing with, then we can start removing some of this darkness. Go ahead.
Verse 15. And many among them shall stumble and fall and be broken and be snared and be taken. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. And I will wait upon Yahweh that hides his face from the house of Jacob, and I will look for him. Behold, I and the children whom Yahweh has given me are for signs and for wonders in Yasharal from Yahweh of hosts, which dwells in Mount Zion.
And that's what we're supposed to be, signs and wonders. The signs and wonders, the signs is like when, hey, these are the children of Yasharal. Look at Deuteronomy 28. They're the only ones that's going through this. But then it's a wonder also like, wow, Also on the blessing side, they have now repented. They have turned away their evil works. And look, they're being delivered from all these people that are trying to come against them. Different nations are coming against them, and that are way greater and mightier than them, but they're being mighty. They're overcoming these challenges because they are a wonder. They are moving away from transgressing the law. Go ahead.
Also the wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to give wisdom, and that the rest of the nations wonder, who are these people?
Right.
That's what we're supposed to be doing instead of acting like a fool and letting the world look at us as subhumans, or we're not worthy to let's say, live in this country.
Right.
With the blessings that we're supposed to have better than the countries around us. Because even though we are, like you say, are poor people here and abused people here, we're the richest slaves in the world. So it tells you in the book that we're supposed to let the nations wonder because we're supposed to be a nation of wisdom. And how Yahweh takes care of us.
Mm-hmm.
So they're supposed to be somewhat jealous of us, that how Yahweh loves us and takes care of us, mindful of us, because we're supposed to be that wise nation.
Right.
Yet we're not showing that we are.
Right.
That's a problem.
Right. Because we still, want to gravitate towards that darkness. He said, look, this is your wisdom in front of the nations. These commandments. This is your life. This is your wisdom. So they're supposed to be like, wow, what a wise and wonderful people these are, full of wonder, wonderful, what wonderful people, but instead we want to dwell in the darkness. So the only way to counter that darkness is to find that narrow path, because all of the paths are leading to darkness, and walk towards the light. But you got to know what light is to begin with. If you're a blind person, you don't know what light is. You ain't never seen it.
No.
Go ahead.
Verse 17. And I will wait upon Yahweh that hides his face from the house of Jacob, and I will look for him. Behold, I and the children whom Yahweh has given me are for signs and for wonders in Yasharal from Yahweh of hosts, which dwells in Mount Zion. And when they shall say unto you, seek unto them that have familiar spirits, and unto wizards that peep and that mutter, should not a people seek unto their Elohim for the living to the dead? To the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them.
And that one verse, that's something you want to highlight. Verse 20, that's one of the most valuable verses from the prophets that you can keep with you in your everyday life. Because when you are seeking counsel from somebody, I don't care, you don't know if they seek a familiar spirit. You might be thinking it's a regular person, but behind closed doors, they doing all kind of wizardry and stuff. So how you can tell that, if you're dealing with the right person, is this to the law and the testimony. If they not speaking according to these words, the word of the Most High, there's no light in them. Don't take that advice. Don't take that counsel. When you are trying to get direction from somebody, now they might not know that they're speaking according to the word, because the Most High can put his spirit on anybody. We study the word so we can identify it. They may be speaking to you, giving you some good counsel to do something righteous, and they not of Israelite or reading the word or whatever. But that's up for you. You the one that study it. So you the one that's supposed to listen out and hear, this person that is a Buddhist or whatever is telling me to do something. And they don't know, they telling me to keep the commandments. I know, because I understand the commandments. So when they tell me that, that's actually good counsel. I'm going to follow that. I knew that, but you brought that back to my remembrance. So it doesn't mean that you can't take counsel from somebody else that doesn't necessarily understand what you understand, but you are responsible for knowing this word well enough to hear the different people talk and know who to listen to.
Verse 21. And they shall pass through it, hardly bestead and hungry, and it shall come to pass that when they shall be hungry, they shall fret themselves and curse their king and their Elohim, and look upward. And they shall look unto the earth and behold trouble and darkness, dimness of anguish, and they shall be driven to darkness.
All right, because they're not speaking according to the word, and they're trying to look for other people or situations or even themselves to deliver themselves from something that is spiritual that's being caused because you're not walking according to the light. You're walking according to the darkness. You can walk in the darkness for a mile and be fine until you walk up into a hole in the ground then you fall in a hole in the ground. So that's the problem. We feel because it's been working for before. But how long you think you're going to keep walking in this multi-terraneous earth before you walk into a lake or walk off a cliff or walk into the middle of a car, hit you in the street? This eventually going to happen. So this is what's going to happen. Dimness, anguish, and being driven into darkness when you do not live or walk according to the law and testimony. All right, so let's move on. Let's go to James, Yaakov, chapter 1. And Shabbat Shalom, Brother Makar Israel. And Shabbat Shalom, Brother Darius. James, Yaakov, chapter 1. And, you know, we have to, you know, certain things, pivotal, is that even a word?
Pivotal.
Pivotal. I was like, pivotable. I was like, is that a word? Probably is, but probably use it out of context. But anyways, one of these pivotal, when you come across these pivotal scriptures that you want to highlight in your book and stuff like that, some of these things are the ones that you want to keep with you and use that. Never feel that, you know, well, this is too much of an earthly situation for this to apply. He is, I am that I am, Ahaya, Asher, Ahaya. Everything there is him. He's included. He's involved in everything. Nothing happens without his will. So we don't want to ever remove any decision making in our lives, remove the word in there. Even if the word is not making a decision for you, you want to consider, because it may be something frivolous, like what should I wear today, or what color, or what. It might be frivolous. But then again, you grabbing something, you thinking about picking a color, and you grabbing this and you grabbing this. One of them mixed fabric, and you ready to go to a holy convocation, or you ready to go into an appearance before the Most High, and you're not thinking little things like that. And that's just kind of an example where you might not think the law has anything to do. You think it's just vanity. I'm just going to wear red or blue today. But when you keep that law in your mind and you're constantly focusing on it, it will expose hidden things, hidden pitfalls that, oh, I didn't see that little hole right there that I could have fell in. James, Yaakov, chapter 1. James, chapter 1, and we're going to start this at verse 1.
James, Yaakov, a servant of Yahweh and of the Master Yahshua Mashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith works patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of Elohim, that gives to all men liberally, and upbraids not, and it shall be given him.
All right, so if you lack wisdom, before you go seeking a teacher or trying to watch a video, go to the Most High first. Ask him so that he can guide your steps, so you can produce your cause. Hey, listen, I'm lacking wisdom. I'm making bad decisions in my life. Yahweh, show me the way. Grant unto me wisdom. And he may allow you to understand something you didn't understand in your own study. Or he may put you in the presence of an assembly. Or you may stumble on a video or a scripture that's giving you the answer exactly what you wanted. But you're not depending on man, you're depending on Yah to guide you. That way, whatever comes from that point forward, you now apply. If they do not speak according to the law and testimony in this word, then there's no light in them. Go ahead.
Verse 6. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavers is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of Yahweh. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Let the brother of low degree rejoice that he is exalted, but the rich in that he is made low, because as a flower of the grass he shall pass away. For the sun is no sooner risen with a burning heat, but it withers the grass, and the flower thereof falls, and the grace of the fashion of it perishes. So also shall the rich man fade away in his ways. Blessed is the man that endures temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which Yahweh has promised to them that love him.
All right, so blessed is the man that endures temptation. You had Adam, he had temptation. He didn't endure that temptation. So it's the same thing with us. The adversary, the devil, is doing the same thing. He is trying to lead us towards the darkness through the lust of our flesh. And we have to endure that. And when we endure that, that's when we receive the blessing. Go ahead.
Verse 13. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of Elohim, for Elohim cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempts he any man.
Exactly. The Most High did not tempt Adam in the garden. He didn't tempt Eve in the garden. The adversary, the devil, did that. But Yahweh allowed it. He allowed it because we have free will. What's the lesson that's supposed to come out of it? And look at the lesson that all of us are receiving out of it from the fall of another man. Go ahead.
Verse 14. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then, when lust has conceived, it brings forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, brings forth death. Do not err, my beloved brethren. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Of his own will begat he us with the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures.
All right. So he begat us with the word of truth, which is this light. We are being born through this light. And being born through this light makes us the first fruits of his creatures, because we are becoming part of the body of the first fruit. The first fruit was Yahshua. In the beginning was the word, and the word was with Elohim, and the word was Elohim. Shabbat shalom, sister. How you doing? So that's what makes us the first fruits of his creatures, because we are becoming part of the body by removing ourselves from the darkness and going back to the light that we were part of in the beginning. Go ahead.
Jacob, James, chapter 1, verse 19. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath.
All right. So which men are they talking about here? Just some men? Or are they talking about, students only? Or are they saying teachers, elders? Who are they talking about here?
Every man.
Every man. So we should all, regardless of where you are in your position in relation to whoever you're talking to, we should all always exercise that being, slow to speak, swift to hear. Slow to speak doesn't mean that, you talk very slow. It means that you take time to process what you've heard. Take time to think about what you want to say, and don't just shoot off at the mouth, because when you just shoot off at the mouth, it's difficult, that filter. It's just like when you're sifting something through, the higher the pressure that's going through it, the
less it's going to get
sifted.
Yeah.
Little things can squeeze through because of the pressure pushing it through the thing that was supposed to capture it. So it's the same thing in our speech. Take time before we, especially in an emotional situation, an emotional manner. And that should be easy for us to identify. Because if I want to reach over the table and choke you, that's an emotional moment. Take time. Okay. I recognize I'm in the flesh right now, because why I want to hurt somebody, my brother or my sister or my mate or whatever the case may be. I'm in anger. So let me calm down. Let me sift these words, because the words that's about to come out are going to be attached to the feeling. Is that according to the law and the testimony?
No.
We gotta consider that. And it may be according to the law and testimony, because you're angry about something. But the way that it's being delivered, where the pure word that's easily entreatable and beneficial and humble, that's supposed to come out, because the pressure of it coming out through that sift, a lot of malice and envy and strife and everything is being pushed and forced through it, because you didn't take the time. Exactly.
Sometimes you just break the sieve, like
and everything come
all
out.
the levees broke.
And everything come out.
Dealing with a soft word, turn red wrath, and dealing with, you gotta be careful what comes out of our mouth, because sin abounds when we wind up saying things we shouldn't say, when we don't hold our mouth.
Right. Right. It'd be a multitude of words, because it just busts through. What verse was that, Brother West?
Proverbs 10:19. The multitude of words once not sin, but he that refraineth his lips is wise.
Exactly. You refraining your lips don't mean you ain't gonna say nothing at all. but you being slow to speak. You're taking your time. You know what? Let me process these words that's coming out my mouth. You know, let me remove these cuss words I was just about to say to you. And let me deal with these words and let me, process this. And while I'm doing that, it gives the other person an opportunity to speak too. And it gives the other person an opportunity to slow themselves down. You know what? I'm railing on this brother or sister and she's being calm. I kind of feel stupid right now because I'm out of order. So now he can sift his words as well.
Yeah, it's okay to be angry.
Right.
But you're not supposed to seem to be angry.
Right.
You make mistakes a lot.
Right.
There's a few parallels. Brother Wesley, did you get that out the book?
Yeah.
There's actually a few. Do you mind we take? There's like a bunch of one-liners.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be able to pull up the next one? Proverbs 16:32.
And what we're doing when we read that, you see them in your Bibles, a lot of them, especially study ones, they'll have little letters next to verses.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at that letter and it'll give you reference scriptures. Because again, anytime you study something, a one-liner especially, you want to read that whole chapter, sometimes a chapter before and a chapter after, so you know what you're talking about. And you want second and third witnesses. Because after 2 or 3 witnesses, let a matter be established. That's how you make sure you're not leaning to your own understanding. Because it's easy to take one verse of one something, and create a whole doctrine off of that. Go ahead and read that verse, Brother West.
16:32.
Read it a little bit louder, please.
Proverbs 16:32. He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty.
Whew.
He that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city.
Right. Because anybody can jump out of the mouth and get a group of people to take a city, but the person that has the battle over their mouth and their tongue, he is a supreme master. Wow. Just like in martial arts, when you become a master, you can control that entire body and you can control when the body operates and when it doesn't. We don't even have to be all that. We just got to control the tongue. That's just one part of the body.
There's a difference between when you say dragon and tiger. The tiger, the black belt, learns how to destroy it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't control his anger.
Right.
But because you're in the practice for a long time, several years as a martial arts black belt,
Right.
then you learn how to, they say a dragon, which
Right.
is, I know I can destroy you. I'm going to turn myself from doing that. I'm going to find another way.
Right.
All right. It's another one. 15:18. It says, "A wrathful man stirs up strife, but he that is slow to anger appeases strife." So we definitely know where Yaakov is getting these.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's 19:11. Proverbs 19:11.
Mm-hmm.
The discretion of a man defers his anger.
Mm-hmm.
So discretion is
Considering, whether I should do something or not.
so you could say like his understanding or his discerning or his maturity. The discretion of a man defers his anger. So when it's coming, he's like, all right,
Let me defer it. I'm angry right now, but my discretion says that's not going to be good. I'm not in war right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm amongst family. Discretion. Let me put it to the side for a second. Let me defer it. Let me deal with that anger later right now.
Or knowing that if he's a judge, knowing that he wants to have, make a rightful judgment, all right, this anger is trying to come up to pervert something. Or if it's something that he likes, maybe he likes cars. Like, hold on, let me put aside anything that he knows is going to pervert his judgment.
Right.
He'll put it to the side. Or
Right.
gifts. So the discretion of a man defers his anger, and it is a glory to pass over a transgression. So he'll pardon things, and he knows this is messed up. He's like, all right, let me look over that for now, so I can get to the root of the matter.
Right. And what it means pass over, it doesn't mean ignore it. It means you being merciful. You're not judging the individual and saying, you know what, you did this, off with your head right away because you angry.
All right.
Oh, I see which one. They also got Hebrews 5:11 and making reference to this also.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying, basically after 5:10, called Elohim, the high priest after the Lord of Melchizedek, they said, of whom we have many things hearing. So basically what I'm receiving of this is that brothers trying to rap at people who are hard of hearing.
Mm-hmm.
You're not hearing what I'm saying, so you might become contentious.
Right.
You know, so it's making me might get upset and say things to you I'm not supposed to say.
Right.
So I have to control myself because it's hard for me right now to utter these things because I get angry with you right now because I'm trying to expound on truth to you, but yet you're so hard of hearing, you don't understand nothing I'm saying.
Right.
It's not getting in.
Right.
What's that one say, brother?
When it's dealing with
You reread it? I didn't.
Hebrews 5, chapter 5, verse 11, it says, of whom we have many things to say
Mm-hmm.
and hard to be uttered, seeing you are dull of hearing.
Right.
And it's making reference also to Yaakov 1:19, the one we just used, that all the other verses came from.
Right.
So he's I'm trying to rap to this brother. You understand?
So this is like a lifting of the veil right now.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
like
And
You know,
tie that with Titus 3 and 10. Read that one real quick. Titus 3 and verse 10. That gives you the tying precept with that.
Find that.
Titus 3 and 10. Go ahead and read that, brother.
A man that is an heretic after the first and second admonition reject,
Keep reading.
knowing that he is subverted and sinned, being condemned of himself.
All right. Because he's dull of hearing, he's a heretic. He's a scoffer. He's not trying to hear what you have to say. So after the second or third, after the second admonition, hey, that's it. I see that you're dull of hearing, so I'm not going to continue because what's going to end up happening? Strife, anger, and now he's pulling you out of your own spirit.
You know, that goes well with this one. I never really understood what this one meant until now. This is Proverbs 20, verse 2.
Mm-hmm.
It says, the fear of a king is as the roaring of a lion. Whoso provokes him to anger sins against his own soul. And that was a little obscure, so I went to the LXE, the Septuagint version,
Mm-hmm.
and it says, the threat of a king differs not from the rage of a lion,
Mm-hmm.
and he that provokes him sins against his own soul.
You did that to yourself.
So don't go around provoking the anger of people or trying to pressure people in wrong ways, because it's not going to be beneficial for
Right.
anybody. So we should all be seeking the peace of one another at the same time.
Right. You condemning yourself. You subverting, and you're condemning your own self because you know what's going to happen. So you know if somebody's dull of hearing, they're not trying to listen to the light and the law and the testimony. You're speaking to them. You know what's going to happen. You're railing up a lion, and you're going to end up, bringing this onto yourself.
Indeed. And this other one is Proverbs 22:8. He that sows iniquity shall reap vanity, and the rod of his anger shall fail. He that sows iniquity shall reap vanity, and the rod of his anger shall fail. So that anger that he has for all the things ain't going to bring about anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to fail. And then the another one is Proverbs 27:4. Wrath is cruel, and anger is outrageous, but who is able to stand before envy?
Right.
And then the Septuagint version, wrath is merciless and anger sharp, but envy can bear nothing.
Right. And a lot of that contention comes from envy and jealousy and pride and all those emotions of the flesh will cause a lot of that word to just get lost in the mix.
Mm-hmm. And then the last one we have is Ecclesiastes 7 verse 9. It says, be not hasty in your spirit to be angry, for anger rests in the bosom of fools.
Right. And also another one, I don't remember the exact scripture, but it talks about, don't get angry at, everybody that curses you or speaks something evil to you because you've done it yourself. Because now you're being hypocritical. Because you say, oh, that brother done cussed me and talked to me a certain kind of way, and you just so angry. Well, haven't you done that to somebody else? You've done that before, right? So does that justify, does that that characterize how you are? You're just an evil person that cusses people out and says things to hurt people's feelings? Is that who you are? You'll say, no, I'm not that person. But this person is because they said it to you.
That one is
That's impartiality.
It's Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 21 and 22. It's also take no heed unto all words that are spoken, lest you hear your servant curse you. For oftentimes also your own heart knows that you yourself likewise have cursed others.
Right. We've all done the same.
So that goes hand in hand with the Proverbs. I was like, be swift to overlook offenses.
Right.
But here's the stumbling block about overlooking offenses is that you'll look at Donald Trump and he's been saying a lot of foul things, and we'll be like, maybe there's a chance that he might, bring some good to pass.
Right.
Maybe he might do a good job, and we keep wanting to give this man some sort of credit, but we're realizing that what we thought were just words is manifesting itself in the passing of bad laws, bills, dealing with certain issues of the countries in a bad manner. So if we spend too much time overlooking offenses, we'll forget that, hold on, offenses need chastisement. Right. Offenses need judgment. Offenses need rebuking at the same time. So let's try our best not to become partial toward pardoning faults or too partial towards recompensing every fault. But just know that at some point we do need to become judging and discerning servants to know what's the proper way to deal with every issue.
And don't be respect of persons.
And being respecters of persons.
Because it's you not that way. Because it's them, they that way. Or because it's him, because he's the president, he's let me overlook that. But your neighbor makes an offense, you ready to cut him off. And call the police or whatever the case. All right, so where are we in James?
We are at verse 20. James chapter 1, verse 20. For the wrath of man works not the righteousness of Elohim. Wherefore, lay apart all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, and receive with meekness the engrafted word which is able to save your souls. But be you doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. For if any be a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man beholding his natural face in a glass. For he beholds himself and goes his way, and straightway forgets what manner of man he was.
So you are a hearer of the word. So you hear the word. You amen. Yes. All right. If you're hearing the word, but at least you're hearing the word. But then you forget it. It was just to hear. It's just like listening to a song. It's just pleasing unto the ears. It's a nice melody to you, but you're not going to allow it to apply anything in your life.
And a good way to do that is to test ourselves. And you backtrack about certain things you went throughout the day. If you grade yourself at the end of the day, or over time something's passed and you think, all right, did I deal with that the proper way? Was I biased? And you think and you go. Me and Chanel call it active thinking. But you approach every situation at all angles and you say, had this entered in, or had somebody said something wrong to me, would I have blown up at that situation? Or had I been sick that day, would I have answered differently? You want to make sure that there's nothing on the outside that's perverting you from coming to a right decision. Whether you have a stomach ache, whether you have a headache, whether you're happy that day. If your heart is lifted up and you're having a good day, does that pervert your judgment that day? Right. So you go and you assess, am I acting in this word? And if you're not, if you realize that there's some portions that you're weak in, start focusing on that, and you realize, all right, this is my weakness, and I'm going to focus on where my heart is lifted up. I don't do something stupid and get myself in trouble. So let me, in happy moments, I know how to just, let me continue doing what I'm doing so I can maintain a peace. And if there's a day when I'm having a bad day, was I quicker to be angry on that day just because I felt it was a bad day? Or do I know how to maintain peace even if things aren't going my way? So we don't want outside forces continually removing us off our base. Right,
and that's sanctifying Yahweh in your heart. You're not allowing outside influences to penetrate the decision-making process.
Hallelujah.
You are sanctifying. The decision is going to be based solely on the law and the testimony, righteousness. It doesn't matter if I'm feeling good, I'm feeling bad, or I'm going to be punished for doing the right thing, or I'm going to be rewarded for doing the right thing. Because when you don't do that, again, somebody give you a gift. Now you perverting judgment. or somebody just has to piss you off. Now the commandments is out the window. People know the
set
adversary
the
knows
person up.
how to do these things. Little children know how to do that to each other. So you think grown people don't know that?
So, because I was seeing a lot of times that people will see the word and love it, you know, want to say that they're gonna do everything in it, and then something happens and they're like not doing it, and it's like, how often do we deceive ourselves? Seeing the word, reading the word, going into it, and realizing that we don't apply it to all our situations. So we should definitely do our best to make sure that we're grading ourselves, because a lot of people don't do that. They'll point the finger at everyone else and never ever really go into self and make sure that they're harder on themselves more than other people.
Right.
Verse 23. Oh, we're at verse 25. But whoso looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed.
And when you're talking about looking into the perfect law of liberty, you have the right to not, like you said, to pass over a matter and say, okay, you know what you did, you know, for example, like Yahshua and the so-called woman that got caught in adultery, he had the law. We had the opportunity to be like, okay, look, where your accusers? No, none of them are okay. Either do I. I don't condemn you either. Just sin no more. So you have that opportunity to speak to somebody and talk to somebody in liberty and say, listen, you know what you did was wrong, and by right you should receive this. I should be angry with you. I should do this, but now I'm going to pass that manner. Thank you. I'm going to pass that manner, and I'm going to tell you the right thing to do, give you good counsel, and back off. What you do from that point is up to you.
Right there, verse 25. Being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed. Now, there's another scripture where Yahshua says, when did you see me hungry and you didn't feed me? When did you see me naked and you didn't clothe me? And he says, whatever you do unto the least of these,
you did that to me.
You've done it unto me. So there's times when we'll see people and we think, oh, this person might not be smart as I am, or this person may not be as serious about the word as I am, which is a very carnal thoughts. So what happens is, in our hearts, we end up disregarding someone, and it ends up showing up in our behavior where we'll show certain people favor, but the person who we feel is, you know, at a lower state, we just kind of ignore them, or we don't show the same attention that we do for everyone else. And the thing is that if we're not paying attention, we'll do that and don't think we're doing it. Like, say you're say as a young person, and this is a carnal example. As a young person, when you sit in a room, you identify more with who's young like you, and you don't pay attention to who you feel is, you know, out of your age range or a lot younger than you. Or if you're at an older age or an advanced mature age, you're trying to identify with people who are in your age range, or people who you feel are the same economic standard as you. And you end up ignoring those who you feel are at a lower state. You end up ignoring those who you feel don't have as much money as you. And what happens is that's a carnal manifestation, whereas spiritually, Yah doesn't want us showing favoritism. So if we don't, this is
respect of persons.
Exactly. So the thing is, if we read in this book that it says, don't be respecters of persons, and we go out and we're actually being respecters of persons, we're just like the person who looks in the mirror, know what they look like, turn around and forget everything that they're supposed to reflect. So this right there, that verse 25. We get a reward if we make sure that we're not forgetful hearers, but doers of the works. And at the end of that verse, it says, this man shall be blessed in his deed. So we have to make sure that we do those things, discipline ourselves, and we realize, hold on, my favor and attention is always going to people who I feel look like me, people who I feel represent everything I am.
Or agree with what I agree, or think how I think.
Exactly. But we remove those stumbling blocks of judgment when we realize, all right, I'm not going to lean to any favor. I just want the truth. At the end of the day, we don't want anything that's going to pervert our truths, pervert the truth.
Right. Verse 26.
Verse 26. If any man among you seem to be religious and bridles not his tongue, he deceives his own heart. That's like about the third time in this verse, this chapter, which talks about us deceiving ourselves. We have to make sure we pay attention and we're not just approving our own works, and our works aren't clean.
Well, just imagine if you can't see, right? You're driving at night or in a bad weather and it's raining real hard and you can't see. What do?
Try to turn on the wipers.
And what do you
slow down?
You slow down. But how foolish is I know that I'm not seeing correctly. Let me start flooring it. And that's what we do when we're in darkness. And we know that we're in darkness because we're in the flesh. We're not keeping the commandments. And we're not doing what we're supposed to do.
Full speed ahead, same way.
Full speed ahead because I'm angry. I don't care. Now, you might do that if you're depressed or you angry. You don't care about the world. You can't see. I'm just going to drive real fast. Do something real reckless. You know, yeah, if I die, I die. I don't care right now. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. Same thing we do. So we have to be honest with ourselves. If we know that we have found ourselves in darkness, and how do you know you're in darkness? Look at your deeds. Look what you're doing. Oh, I'm in darkness right now because I know better than this. And look at the things that I'm doing. Slow down. Mm-hmm. Repeat that, verse 26.
If any man among you seems to be religious and bridles not his tongue, but deceives his own heart, this man's religion is in vain. Pure religion and undefiled before Elohim and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world.
All right. Let's move on. Let's go to Yohanan chapter 12. So, again, if you find out that, which is John chapter 12, if you find yourself in darkness, and again, how do you know you in darkness? Look at your deeds. What are you doing? Are these things that gives the glory to the Most High? If it's not giving glory to the Most High, you in darkness. Because there's no in between. It's right and wrong. There's no in between. It either gives glory to the Most High or is blaspheming the Most High. With us, because we are named after him. So you have a choice to which direction you want to go. But if you want to be of the Mashiach, you're going to have to move away from the darkness, period. Light and darkness can't dwell in the same spot. And we know that Yahshua is the Word in flesh. And that Word in the beginning was the light that lighted up every man. So if you're going to be part of that, you got to be moving away from the darkness.
You know, something real interesting you mentioned a while ago about, you know, you're in the rain and carnally we know that we can't see, we need to slow down. Mm-hmm. There's a certain thing as being spiritually reckless. And right. It's something that I started realizing recently, like, being like, there's people who know that they're sensitive, but they enter into too many contentions.
Right.
They don't handle things
guard their
carefully
hearts.
And guard their heart. Like the scriptures say, guard your heart, for out of it comes the issues of life. But they enter into certain situations wrong, or they associate themselves with the wrong people, like especially people who are in the spirit. I recognize that the more I started knowing about this word, the more my heart began to get more feeling. Whereas before, right. I had a hardened heart. There were certain things I could just overlook and really not care. But over time, I began to become a more sensitive person. I began to find myself more affected by the things that people say. So I found that I really couldn't associate with certain people because they speak a lot. They speak way too rashly. They don't think. You have to actually take the time to say to them, like, look, you have to think about what you're saying before you say it, right. Because that's a hurtful thing you just said.
Right.
But you realize too, people have the freedom of choice. Some people don't
care.
They don't care about things they say. So when you realize that that's that person's nature, you be like, look, I can't deal with you because you don't care about your life. Because you think what you're saying is just about me, but you don't understand how those things bounce around in your heart as an echo, because you're doing it to me and I'm just a friend. What do you do to someone who's your family?
Right.
You know, and to know that we deal with those people from day to day. So you can't be spiritually reckless in the people you hang around with, the things that you say, the type of situations you entertain. You have to be a lot more discerning and not just blast full speed ahead into a lot of things.
Right.
Yohanan chapter 12, John chapter 12 and verse 1. When Yahshua, 6 days before the Passover, came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, which had been dead, whom he raised from the dead, there they made him a supper. And Martha served, but Lazarus was one of them that sat at the table with him. Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Yeshua, and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the odor of the ointment. Then said one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray him, why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief. You see, that's discerning. Somebody can say something, but if you have discernment, you'll know that it's not, there's an ulterior motive here. You think he think about the poor, and he's not. He just love money.
Right. You the dude watching the money.
But he know that, this is the people who in the word, so let me just put a righteous spin on it.
Right.
He wasn't told, it's not your business.
The same way when you single and you're looking for someone in the word, all they gotta do is say a prayer before they eat food, or say bless you after you sneeze.
She's the one.
Like, this is the one.
That's her.
Give them all the credit in the world.
She woke up with a headscarf on. Oh, that's
man,
her. That's the sister.
Head
covered and all. Hold up.
Verse 6. This is not said. This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the bag and bare what was put therein. Then said Yeshua, let her alone against the day of my burying. She has kept this. For the poor always you have with you, but me you have not always.
All right, so you want to keep that precept also where you have, for example, like atonement, where they tell you, okay, you're not supposed to eat. You're supposed to assume, cover up your mouth. You're supposed to afflict yourself. And certain people say, okay, we want to do good deeds on that day. We want to go feed the poor. That's all well and nice. But the day here is, the commandment says you're supposed to fast this day. How are you going to feed somebody on the day they're supposed to fast? Are they not going to be hungry tomorrow? Are they not going to be hungry the day before atonement? Why you got to go on the day when you ain't supposed to eat and nobody's supposed to eat and you want to feed somebody? It goes right here. Yeshua is not saying, hey, listen, don't take care of the poor. He's telling you prioritize. Do this. What this woman is doing is a good deed right now. Prioritize. The poor are going to be with you always. But you ain't going to have me around you always. Right.
Well, what I got to look for in this verse, prior in this book, is that it says, she against the day of my burying has she kept this. And we know that Yeshua was trying to let them know that he was going to die for them the whole time, and they didn't understand nothing he was saying. Right. But she, in the discernment of her heart, understood, like, hold on, he knows that they're about to kill him, and she believed him when he said it, whereas none of them understood what he was talking about over and over. So I have to see if he had mentioned his death prior to this verse. And it's like, I was thinking, like, how would she know that that's what he was talking about? Just simply listening. Whereas they probably had hardness of heart, didn't believe what he was talking about, couldn't put the two and two together. Like, hold on, does he really think that they're about to kill him? They just probably overlooked everything he was saying. So we know that it meant a lot to Yeshua, the fact that she knew that he was going to be buried.
She believed.
He'd been trying to tell his disciples for forever, and then they never understood what he was talking about.
Right. And just look who he exposed. He exposed himself to a woman first when he came back, because she believed. Come to us, the brothers. We take us a minute to believe something.
Yeah, hard. Even Thomas stood right before him, and he was like, "Man, I don't think that's him." Like, even there was people there that saw him after the resurrection, and it says some still doubted. Right. So even now, to believe is a very big thing, because there's people who saw him
and still didn't believe.
Touched him, and was like, man, this is some where they just refuse to believe. So we can't always expect everyone just gonna just get it, because it's just not given to them.
So if people that were there and saw and still didn't believe, so how much more do you expect people here that didn't see for sure and to believe? It's going to be very difficult. And then you also have, when you read the rest of the story, you know that they paid people, soldiers, to tell people, oh yeah, the disciples came later at night and removed the rock, and so people gonna believe what they want to believe.
So, but that's why there's a blessing on this. It says, "You have seen and believe. Blessed are those who haven't seen yet believe."
Right.
Verse 8: For the poor always you have with you, but me you have not always. Much people of the Yehudim therefore knew that he was there, and they came not for Yeshua's sake only, but that they might see Lazarus also, whom he had raised from the dead. But the chief priests consulted that they might put Lazarus also to death.
You are going to be put to death because you died and you came back from death. That's unlawful. Put him to death.
Wow.
Wow.
Because by that reason of him,
You know, what? How are they going to condemn him for what? For being unclean. You was unclean. You dead is unclean, and you unclean, and you came up in here unclean.
they had the evil spirit. They had a wicked spirit ministering to. There's nothing that Yahshua was going to be able to do that was going to allow them to believe on him. No matter how nice of a work he did, no matter who he raised up from the dead, no matter how much food he split in front of their eyes,
right?
That wicked spirit on them caused them to overlook what was happening right in front of their eyes. They rejected him. Verse 11. Because that by reason of him, many of the Yehudim went away and believed on Yahshua. On the next day, much people that were come to the feast, when they heard that Yahshua was coming to Jerusalem, took branches of palm trees and went forth to meet him and cried, Hosanna! Blessed is the King of Yasharal that comes in the name of Yahweh. And Yahshua, when he had found a young donkey, sat thereon, as it is written, Fear not, daughter of Zion, behold, your king comes, sitting on an ass's colt. These things understood not his disciples at the first. They didn't get it. But when Yahshua was glorified, then remembered they that these things were written of him, and that they had done these things unto him. The people therefore that was with him, when he called Lazarus out of the grave and raised him from the dead, bear record. For this cause the people also met him, for that they heard that he had done this miracle.
And, you know, what is the point if you're going to die anyways? What's the point of raising up somebody from the dead? Because they're going to die anyways. But again, the miracle is for non-believers. Why do we think, what's the spiritual, one of the spiritual, I guess, messages out of Yahshua raising him up from the grave? Anybody?
There's life ever after. But you know, this is not ended in death as we know it. It means that death is just the beginning of life ever after, because if you make it into the kingdom, it means you have been obedient to the word. You are a true servant of the Most High.
Right.
So you have a reward. You know, and the people, a lot of people believe that once you're dead, you're done. So it means that guess what, I can do anything I want to do, and I only got to pay one penalty if I die. So what? I'm dead, and then it's done. I ain't got to worry about nothing. I have no memory of nothing.
Right.
I ain't got to sweat nothing. And other people believe, even if you do dirt, like people say in most churches out here, bringing a dead body into the church, they found in the church, they say, oh, well, he's dead, even though you know he was a drug dealer, murderer, how you say that, all these different things that we count as evil, you understand? He did it to the day he died. He was found and got shot and murdered doing these things. So obviously he had, we all know that he had no, chance for mercy in the flesh, you know, because mercy, so why should he get mercy in the spirit after he's dead? He's done. So they say, oh, he's in heaven. He's in heaven with your mom and dad, your uncles, and so one day we will die and we'll meet him in heaven. Right. What makes you think he's in heaven? And then all this
King David's not in heaven.
That's
so,
right, King David's not in heaven.
So, I mean, if King David not in heaven, what made you think that he was going to take you and put you in heaven?
And King David was second king of
a man of Yahweh's heart.
A man of Yahweh. After
right.
He died. So we look at this situation here, and that's what people most of the time think, that when he's telling you about the resurrection, life, he's trying to let you understand. Later on, you understand this. There will be a resurrection period. It's a resurrection to the lake of fire, a resurrection to his Father's kingdom. You know, so choose which one you want by how you walk and who you obey. He's trying to let people understand that. Listen, I'm trying to give you a choice. I'm trying to lead you to the truth.
Right.
I'm trying to give you the answer. This is a test. I'm giving you the answers to the test. You know what I mean? Don't disrespect me and do what you want to do when I got the answer to the test. So how do you want to answer this question? Do you want to come to the Most High or not? Do you want to live in the kingdom or not? The answer is yes or no. Because if you do not believe in the resurrection, then obviously you ain't going to follow the truth. You're going to do your will, not the Father's will. So this is how we get led in error. By all these pulpit lies that they have out here, leading us astray. Yet the Messiah is showing you, I'm giving you the truth, and I've raised the dead. I'm showing you this can happen.
Right.
You know, but they don't want to see Yahweh's
Right.
truth.
Right.
They don't want to see it.
Right. And anybody else, what is the significance of Yahshua raising up somebody from the dead? Anybody?
That he's able to restore our understanding, move us from darkness, restore us to light.
Right. And he is what? In flesh. He's the what in flesh?
He's the word.
The word
The
in
truth.
flesh can raise you from the dead, can pull you out of the dark into the light. If you believe.
That's right.
And if you believe, you are not going to be just a hearer or speaker of the word. You're going to be a doer of the word. But once you are raised from the dead and you're given that life again, you know, he's not going to keep dying for you to keep doing the same thing over and over. Jump down to verse 20.
And there were certain Greeks among them that came up to worship at the feast. The same came before to Philip, which was of Bethsaida of Galilee, and desired him, saying, Sir, we would see Yahshua. Philip comes and tells Andrew, and again Andrew and Philip tell Yahshua. And Yahshua answered them, saying, The hour is come that the Son of Man should be glorified. Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abides alone. But if it die, it brings forth much fruit. He that loves his life shall lose it, and he that hates his life in this world shall keep it unto life eternal. If any man serve me, let him follow me, and where I am, there shall also my servant be. If any man serve me, him will my Father honor.
All right, so it says, he that loves his life shall lose it, and he that hates his life in this world shall keep it unto life eternal. So you say, well, how do you hate your life? Well, remember, it said that Esau despised his inheritance because he put it, I don't care about that. I want this fleshly stuff. Give me this. I want to eat right now. I want this right now. So Yahweh counted that as you despised your inheritance because you didn't put this as primary importance. So when you hate in your life, it's the same thing. I'm here. I like these things. I like these worldly things, but this is my priority here. So I'm despising this life here. And this is why you hating your life. It's not necessarily you don't like living. It's just I'm going to push that to the side. And I'm going to let that be to the side. And I'm going to prioritize this new life first.
Verse
26.
If any man serve me, let him follow me, and where I am, there also shall my servant be. If any man serve me, him will my Father honor.
All right. So if you say that you're a follower of the Mashiach, then you're going to serve him. You're going to serve this word. Go ahead.
Now is my soul troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour, but for this cause came I unto this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then came there a voice from heaven saying, I have both glorified it and will glorify it again. The people therefore that stood by and heard it said that it thundered. Others said, an angel spoke to him. All
right. So again, that shows you that he had fear, because he said right here in verse 27, now is my soul troubled. And what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. Isn't that kind of similar to what he prayed? Yeah. Hey, if this cup removed. So yeah, he knew that he came here to do that. But when that flesh kick in, that fear is going to come. But you don't have to succumb to that feeling of flesh. Go ahead.
Yahshua answered and said, this voice came not because of me, but for your sakes. Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. And I, if I be lifted up, there it is, now the prince of the world is cast out, fall from heaven. And I, if I be lifted up from the, we're at John chapter 12, verse 31. verse 31, Mama. Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. And I, if I be lifted up from the earth, I will draw all men unto me. This, he said, signifying what death he should die. The people answered him, we have heard out of the law that Mashiach abides forever. And how say you, the Son of Man must be lifted up? Who is this Son of Man? Then Yahshua said unto them, yet a little while is the light with you. Walk while you have the light, lest darkness come upon you. For he that walks in darkness knows not where he goes.
All right. So while you can know to do the right thing, do the right thing. Because little do you know that that light can be taken from you. And now you in darkness. So he, that knows to do good and doesn't, is a sin unto him. Go ahead.
Could you say again what was the significance of Yahshua raising up Lazarus? What were you saying that was?
Part of the significance? Mm-hmm. Well, part of that significance is the fact that he is the Word and he is raising somebody from the dead. So it's letting you know the power for you to receive life after death is coming from this Word. And then you'll see that same thing in the disciples that were able to do the same thing. They're able to raise people up from the dead. It's because of this Word. So the significance of that is Yahshua, who is the Word in flesh, is raising people from the dead. For what purpose does he have to? Because the man gonna die anyway, sooner or later. So it was being done for a reason, to show that this Word has the power to raise you from the dead, to go along with what the elder was saying, that there is a resurrection after the dead. But the only way you're gonna get it is through this Word.
Yeah, believe in
period.
Hallelujah.
The rejection of the Word, you rejected, the Most High, you rejected Yeshua.
Right.
You rejected the blood that he shed. So why should he allow you in his kingdom? So you won't be resurrected to resurrection, to salvation. You be resurrected to damnation.
Right. And that's also when he was like, they wanted him to raise up somebody from the dead. And he was like, oh, you people, you little faith. Mm-hmm. You don't know that the Word has the power to do this? What is you crying about? At the end of the day, he's going to die anyway someday. As long as he's coming unto me, he's going to be all right. But since y'all have no faith, you don't understand, you don't think that he lived his life right. All right, let me come over here. Come here. Get up.
Verse 35. When Yahshua said unto them, yet a little while is the light with you. Walk while you have the light, lest darkness come upon you. For he that walks in darkness knows not where he goes. While you have light, believe in the light, that you may be the children of light. These things spoke Yahshua, and departed, and did hide himself from them. But thought he had done so many miracles, but though he had done so many miracles before them, yet they believed not on him. That the saying of Isaiah the prophet might be fulfilled, which he spoke, Yahweh, who has believed our report, and to whom has the arm of Yahweh been revealed? Therefore they could not believe, because that Isaiah said again, he has blinded their eyes and hardened their heart, that they should not see with their eyes, nor understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them.
All right, so that's tying that precept that I just said. While you have that light, believe in the light, that you may be children of the light. Because you don't know when that darkness is going to come on you. Yet a little while is the light with you. Walk while you have that light, lest darkness come upon you. Lest this spiritual slumber come upon you, where you have eyes that cannot see and ears that cannot hear. Yahweh's only going to deal with your rebelliousness and disobedience for so long, till eventually he's going to say, okay, you want to be darkness? Great, I got a job for darkness. Because I need both light and dark. I need them both. You're supposed to be in the light, but you want to be darkness? Great. I'm going to use you to try and prove one of my servants. Just like he used Pharaoh to try his servant Moshe. Go ahead.
Verse 41. These things said Isaiah when he saw his glory and spoke of him. Nevertheless, among the chief rulers also many believed on him. But because of the Pharisees, they did not confess him, lest they should be put out of the synagogue.
Oh, you deny me before men? I'm going to deny you before who? The Father.
For they loved the praise of men more than the praise of Elohim.
And you see that in these Hebrew camps and these congregations and churches right now. People will know better. You got knowledgeable people sitting there in the camp that know that the leader is saying something wrong, but they don't want to be picked on. They don't want to be a target, so they don't say nothing. But then they come behind closed doors and talk to the person, you know, who corrected the person, saying, man, I acknowledge it. Well, then why you ain't say something? If you knew it was wrong, you knew something, why you ain't say something? Because you want the favor of man. And if you want the favor of man, the adversary know what to do to pull you back into the darkness.
Verse 44. Yahshua cried and said, he that believes on me believes not on me, but on him that sent me. And he that sees me sees him that sent me. I am come a light into the world, that whosoever believes on me should not abide in darkness.
So if you believe in this word, you will not abide in darkness. Because if you believe the word tell you keep the commandments, is going to be well. Don't keep the commandments, you're going to be cursed. So you're going to show if you believe in Yahshua right in there, because if you believe that, you're going to walk according to the light because you want to receive the blessing.
Verse 47. If any man hear my words and believe not, I judge him not. For I came not to judge the world, but to save the world.
And that's why he didn't stone that woman. And this is why we don't judge people. We rebuke people, we warn people, but we do not judge people. Because if Yahshua is the only person who's qualified to judge, because he knows man's heart. We don't know. It says that the heart is exceedingly wicked. Who can know it? So we don't know it. So we're not fit to judge yet. And he said, look, I came into this world not to judge, but to save. So that's the same part that we're in. We're in that same day that we're supposed to be saving people, not judging people.
And I see that Yahshua was biased towards people's upliftment because he knows whoever is left back is going to endure a lot of tribulation. The fires of wickedness by default is going to deal with them. So he's like, look, I'm all about lifting you up. If you reject my words, that's fine, because there's already a consequence down there in that area.
Right.
I don't need to add to it.
Right.
Verse 48. He that rejects me and receives not my words has one that judges him. The word that I have spoken, the same shall judge him in the last day. For I have not spoken of myself, but the Father which sent me, he gave me a commandment, what I should say and what I should speak.
It goes right back to what Elder was saying. Look, I have not spoken of myself, the Father which sent me. So he's letting you know, look, there's another spirit that sent me here. I didn't say I speak of myself because I sent myself here. He didn't say that. Go ahead.
And I know that his commandment is life everlasting. Whatsoever I speak, therefore, even as the Father said unto me, so I speak.
And that's what we want to be known for. We want to be known. Whatever the Father said, that's what we do. What he told us to say, that's what we said. Speak not according to the law and testimony. There is no what?
Light in them.
There is no light in them. All right, let's move on. Let's go to Yeshaya, Isaiah chapter 56. Yeshaya, Isaiah chapter 56. And start this at verse 1. Isaiah chapter 56. And start this at verse 1. Shalom, brother Yehuda, Israel.
Thus says Yahweh, keep you judgment and do justice, for my salvation is near to come, and my righteousness to be revealed. Blessed is the man that does this, and the son of man that lays hold on it, that keeps the Sabbath from polluting it, and keeps his hand from doing any evil. Neither let the son of the stranger that has joined himself to Yahweh speak, saying, Yahweh has utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree.
All right, so even in this is Old Testament, and they talking about allowing strangers to cleave onto Yasharal. But if you cleave onto Yasharal, it's the same as Yasharal trying to cleave onto Yasharal. You got to keep commandments. Go ahead.
For thus says Yahweh, unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbaths, and choose the things that please me, and take hold of my covenant. Even unto them will I give in my house and within my walls a place and a name better than of sons and of daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. Also the sons of the stranger that join themselves to Yahweh to serve him and to love the name of Yahweh, to be his servants, everyone that keeps the Sabbath from polluting it and takes hold of my covenant, even them will I bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be accepted upon my altar. For my house shall be a house of prayer for all people.
All right, so notice there's a difference here. The eunuchs he's talking about, yeah, you can come in my house within my walls. Eunuchs are people that have their members cut off or have no desire to be with the opposite sex. But then he's also saying here, also the sons of the stranger, he's saying that you're going to bring your gifts, you're going to do all this stuff, and you're going to bring that to my house of prayer. And then you go into later where it talks about the court of the Gentiles, the other nations, where they will be able to be. Verse 8.
My sovereign Yahweh, which gathers the outcasts of Yasharal, says, Yet will I gather others to him beside those that are gathered unto him. All you beasts of the field, come to devour, yea, all you beasts in the forest. His watchmen are blind, they are all ignorant. They are all dumb dogs, they cannot bark, sleeping, laying down, loving to slumber. Yea, they are greedy dogs, which can never have enough. And they are shepherds that cannot understand. They all look to their own way, everyone for his gain, from his quarter. Come, you, say they, I will fetch wine, and we will fill ourselves with strong drink, and tomorrow shall be as this day, and much more abundant.
All right, so even the watchman can be blinded. So he has moved and brought that darkness back into him because he's the watchman. He's supposed to be watching out for the danger, but he has become blinded because of his ignorance in his sin, in his transgression. So that transgression, though, even though you got plenty and great eyesight and you have removed the darkness, the veil of darkness, your actions can bring you right back into that darkness. And that's what we want to watch out for. Let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 11. And then we have one more for the conclusion. 2 Corinthians chapter 11. And what we see often is, and we thought that it was left alone in Christianity, because in Christianity they got that thing about being saved. I'm saved. That we know that's not true, because you can get your name blotted out the book of life. So you ain't saved until you in safety, which means death and hell is thrown in the lake of fire. And then you saved.
Yeah. After you've been over 100 years in the kingdom, not getting thrown out because your evil is still in your own heart.
Right. So we take that as, we are saved, and we bring that same Christian mentality of religion into being an Israelite. We're feeling that we the 144 because we know we Israel. We waving a flag like we safe. It don't work that way, because you saw here, even the watchmen were blinded. And they the ones that's supposed to have the best eyesight. They're supposed to see and blow the shofar when there's problems coming. So there ain't no situation of being saved. You better use that light while you have to walk in the light, because that darkness can come to you. And darkness can come to you by a situation because you are so emotional in a situation that you cannot see clearly. And that's when you have to have the right people around you, brothers and sisters that may care, and they crying too for you, but they're a little bit further removed from the emotion than you are, and they can help you see. 2 Corinthians chapter 11.
In verse 1, I desire that you could bear with me a little in my folly, and indeed bear with me. For I am jealous over you with righteous jealousy.
Yes.
Chapter 11.
Mm-hmm.
For I am jealous over you with righteous jealousy. For I have espoused you to one husband, that I might present you as a chaste virgin to Mashiach. But I fear, lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your minds should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Mashiach.
The simplicity. Just keep the commandments. Why are we making stuff so hard? It don't matter how you feel about the situation. Just look at right or wrong and try to make the right decision. Period. And in doing that, your understanding and your wisdom is going to increase because you are showing the Father that I trust your commandments. I trust your, it's just like when you are learning math and you learn your basics, your addition, your subtraction, your multiplication, and your division. Now, when you start getting in equations, you got more confidence in your work because you've been working on all these lower building blocks. So when you get to that advanced equation, you getting through it because you got your foundation. It's the same thing with these commandments. You learn what is right and what is wrong, and you start applying it. Now, eventually, the test is going to get harder, and you're going to come into a situation where both decisions are lawful. Then what do? Use your discernment. Go ahead.
For if he that comes preaches another Yahshua, whom we have not preached, or if you receive another spirit which we have not received, or another good news which you have not accepted, you might well bear with them. You ain't just going to cast them to the side. Go ahead. Verse 5. For I suppose I was not a whit behind the very chiefest apostles. But though I be rude in speech, yet not in knowledge, but we have been thoroughly made manifest among you in all things.
And rude in speech just mean plain. It doesn't mean that he was being disrespectful. Go ahead.
Verse 7. Have I committed an offense in abasing myself, that you might be exalted, because I have preached to you the good news of Elohim freely? I robbed other assemblies, taking wages of them to do you service. And when I was present with you and wanted, I was chargeable to no man, for that which was lacking to me, the brethren which came from Macedonia supplied. And in all things I have kept myself from being burdensome to you, and so will I keep myself. As the truth of Mashiach is in me, no man shall stop me of this boasting in the regions of Achaia. Why? Because I love you not, Elohim knows. But what I do, that I will do, that I may cut off occasion from them which desire occasion, that wherein they glory, they may be found even as we. For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Mashiach. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light.
All right, so you have to be careful. Yes, we want to be understanding on both sides, not to judge an individual, to say because somebody had a bad past or had done something bad to you and years has passed by that you just assuming that this person is going to always be wicked. Now, you should definitely be wary of somebody that has been known to do wickedness, but don't judge that person because they can be transformed. But also at the same time, just because somebody has done a lot of righteousness and good things to you, be cognizant of that they can also start moving towards darkness as well. Because even Satan himself has transformed himself into an angel of light. So he looked like, hey, I'm all about this word because, I got this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. But he's not about this word. He's not about righteousness.
Verse 15. Therefore, it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works.
All right, let's stop right there. Let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 3. Let's go back a few chapters for the conclusion. And we stopped in verse 15. In 2 Corinthians chapter 11, we stopped at verse 15. So we're at the conclusion, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, and we're going to start this at verse 1.
Do we begin again to commend ourselves? Or need we, as some others, epistles of recommendation to you, or letters of recommendation from you?
Yours says recommendation? It should be
commendation.
Okay.
I'm dyslexic today.
Okay.
Verse 2. You are our epistle, written in our hearts, known and read of all men. For as much as you are manifestly declared to be the epistle of Mashiach, ministered by us, written not with ink, but with the spirit of the living Elohim, not in tables of stone, but in fleshly tables of the heart. And such trust have we through Mashiach to Elohim, not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think that anything of ourselves, but our sufficiency is of Elohim, who also has made us able ministers of the New Testament, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. But if the ministration of death, written and graven in stones, was glorious, so that the children of Yasharal could not steadfastly behold the face of Moshe for the glory of his countenance, which glory was to be done away, how shall not the ministration of the Spirit be rather glorious? For if the ministration of condemnation be glory, much more does the ministration of righteousness exceed in glory.
So it goes down to a lot of the Old Testament Torah only people. If there was so much glory around the death of the sinner and the death of animal sacrifices, and that was glory alone because it was a symbol of the mercy of the Most High, that the death would pass from us, or that he would love us so much that he would kill somebody so that we could have life. If that is glorious, how much more glorious is the life and the mercy that is given, that we are receiving the mercy through the Most High, through Yeshua, through his sacrifice and the sacrifice of all these apostles and all these prophets that gave their life. How much more is there not glory in that we can live in this word, that we don't have to die every time we sin. We can live. Go ahead.
All that glory was in the sacrifice of the animals. Why would Yeshua come down here and die?
He said, first of all, he said, look, I didn't ask you for these sacrifices. I didn't desire this.
Nope.
I had to do that because y'all wouldn't be obedient. So it's either you or these animals, one or the other. But you got to understand that there's going to be a consequence for your transgression, and that it's going to affect more than just you. It's going to affect other people. This is why also you saw in the camp when people would commit transgressions like Achan, you had several thousand people died or whatever, because Achan took the Babylonian garment and hid it under his tent and some silver and whatever. Other people died. He died too, eventually, and his family. But other people died first. So that was what he was trying to get us to understand. And there was mercy in that. So how much more glory that, look, you can still receive life. And you don't have to kill nobody. You don't have to kill nothing. You can just skip past all that and get straight to the contrite heart and the humble spirit and the repentance. How do you not see more glory in that? Go ahead.
Verse 10. For even that which was made glorious had no glory in this respect by reason of the glory that excels. For if that which is done away was glorious, much more that which remains is glorious. Seeing then that we have such hope, we use great plainness of speech, and not as Moshe, which put a veil over his face, that the children of Yasharal could not steadfastly look to the end of that which is abolished, but their minds were blinded. For until this day remains the same veil, untaken away in the reading of the Old Testament, which veil is done away in Mashiach.
All right, so that same veil remains in those people that are not accepting the Mashiach, which is the word. You got to accept the word, period, the Old Testament. But they're not even understanding the Old Testament. That's why they can't understand the Mashiach. They couldn't understand the Old Testament. They had the veil of blindness already over them in the Old Testament, because he is the whole Old Testament is him. He's the volume of the book. And the New Testament is just further explaining the Old Testament. So this is why you can't even get to the New Testament understanding, because you're confused in the Old Testament. That veil of blindness is already over you.
Verse 15. But even unto this day when Moshe is read, the veil is upon their heart. Nevertheless, when it shall turn to Yahweh, the veil shall be taken away.
All right. When you turn to the Adonai, when you turn to this word, when you turn to Yahweh, then the veil is going to be taken away. But we turn into ourselves. We trying to do everything. We trying to make ourselves the God. We focusing on I am Elohim and this, that, and the other. And we're not giving the respect to where it was due in this word and in the sacrifice that was made for us, so that we could advance out of elementary school into middle school, into high school, eventually into a university level. Go ahead and finish that up.
Verse 17. Now Yahweh is that spirit, and where the spirit of Yahweh is, there is liberty. But we all, with open face, beholding as in a glass the glory of Yahweh, are changed into the same image from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of Yahweh.
All right. So that's all we're going to do today. We just want to keep in mind, again, we have to actively seek to remove that veil of darkness. It's not just going to be like, oh, you know, the truth is here now. Everybody knows. It's not. Because, yeah, you might receive that truth, but then you can go right back into that darkness by your own actions and your lack of prioritizing the light, your time in the light. So we want to actively seek to remove the veil of darkness, move away from that darkness, because at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, there is going to be no more darkness. There's not going to be no more night. It's going to be daytime all the time. So when darkness is removed, if that darkness is in you, you're going to be removed with the darkness. Point blank, because there is not going to be no more confusion. There is no more sacrifice for sin. There is no more of that. So we have to show the Most High in this time of grace and mercy that Yahshua said, look, I'm here to save life. Use that time to save your life. Use that time to establish in heaven amongst everybody, all the angels, all the spirits, everybody in front of Yahweh that, hey, I want to be part of the light, so that the word can speak up for us when it's our time. So that's all we're going to do. Any last questions or comments before we close? Grab the phone. Go ahead, Elder.
Just want to add a little bit to what you said, brother, you know, because this is to me, it's a very powerful verse when he's talking about verse 16. Nevertheless, when it shall turn to Yahweh, the veil shall be taken away. And we say, well, how can we do that? How? You know, can we be in a position, in a place where the veil that's hindering our sight, our knowledge, the truth, we can see through it, when it will be dropped. And I'm looking at it as he's talking about, you know, that when you turn yourself to the Most High, to Yahweh, when you truly seek his face, seek his truth, then he said all these other things will be added unto you. Well, why should it be added to you? Because you, for one, you're submitting yourself to the Father to understand his truth, not man's truth. Because man will tell you, if he's honest, you don't have to believe in what I have to say. I want you to read it for yourself. Right. It's just we're here now to regurgitate what the word is saying and try to get a higher benefit for what Yahweh is trying to teach us so we can follow this path. But if you yourself do not take line upon line, perch upon perch to seek the truth, how are you going to hear Yahweh's voice? How are you going to know he's going to talk to you? How are you going to know that what was read is truth? It's because you will not, if you don't seek him, you cannot put those golden nuggets inside of you to reflect off this truth as truth. Right. Because you will not understand this truth. And we all know that Yahweh will speak to us little by little bit to show us the level of truth to let us follow obedience to him. Right. Just because I don't know what the length of what my brother Yahweh says, or Yadon says, or one of the sisters, or they don't understand what I say, you know, it doesn't mean I have to take everything I say, but Yahweh is going to lead us in all truth as we walk in that truth. Right. Wherever we stand, wherever we come in at. Right. Right. You see, and that's what people need to understand. Because how are we going to even become like they say in Corinthians, right? We go back, well, let's see, one chapter? I think it's one chapter. And he's talking about, let me see, I think I'm right now. We're talking about how you're going to be of the same mind as everybody else. It's because we become same mind when we believe in the same truth. When Yahweh leads us into his truth. And then we talk about things with each other. We express things with each other by what the word says, as we do diligently seeking what the words mean in Greek and in Hebrew, to understand what it meant then. So we have to use it for today. We talk about, we get counsel with each other. To understand, are we talking about the right thing, brother? Are we doing the right thing? We try to use the body, as Yahweh said, to find out what the truth is from what Yahweh has expressed down to us through his son, through these words. Right. So as we do this, now we learn how to walk. Then, after we learn how to walk, we have to learn how to step to walk.
Right.
Because that's what we talk about for perfecting. Not just hearers of the word, we doers of the word. And that doers of the word takes time for each one, every last one of us. Because my walk might not be like my brother's walk. Their walk might not be like my walk. But if I stay the course, and I'm going to get through the walk my Father wants me to get through to reach to seek the truth that He wants me to know to help others, not
Right.
just myself.
Right.
You know, so I just want to expound on that because this today's class is dealing with really, do you believe or you don't believe?
Right.
If you're going to believe in Yahweh or not. So I just wanted to speak on that. Thank you.
Right. I don't know, something came into my mind real quick before we close, just about that walk and how we want to consider, and something for us to think about. You know, we look at people and we compare, you know, our walk and their walk, and like you said, your walk might not be the same, but we need to be heading the same direction.
That's right.
So if just look at the human body, just in understanding how the human body works, it clarifies so many things within our walk. You got two legs. Both are going the same direction, but if both walk the same, how you gonna walk? One leg gotta move forward, the other leg gotta stay. The other leg gotta move forward. If both go forward, you're gonna fall backwards. So they work together, but guess what? Ultimately, they're heading the same direction. But if you were to judge the other leg and say, well, why are you not doing what I'm doing? Why are you not doing the job that I'm doing right now? You're not understanding that, listen, you're looking at the wrong things. Look at your brother or sister. Are we heading the same direction? The Most High sees the end result. He sees the finished product. We don't. So when he's looking at us where, okay, I'm dealing with you or where you're at, but I already know what the end product is. Mm-hmm. So we have to try to deal with each other the same way. I don't know what the end result is with anybody, but I can say, are you heading the same direction? So if you're heading the same direction, then hey, we shouldn't have any strife. We're heading the same direction. And where I might see something wrong, hey, we try to help each other and correct each other. We might have a disagreement. Hey, we head off. I go right, he goes left, whatever. But if we're heading the same direction, we're eventually going to meet back up. So it doesn't need to be all that division and strife amongst our camps, amongst our brothers, our sisters, and things of that nature. Because that is, when you have all that, that's evidence of darkness. All right, so anybody else, anything else? All right, let's go ahead and end in a prayer. All brothers remove their head coverings. All sisters pray with their heads covered. And we face the east towards Jerusalem. All right, Elder Mikhail, can you go ahead and close us out in prayer?
Our Father, most holy and true covenant, Elohim, Abraham, Mishak, and Yaakov, we give thanks and all praise unto you, Father, in Yeshua's holy and mighty name, Father Yahweh, for allowing us, Father, to digitally get into your word, Father, and try to dissect it, to understand your holy, mighty truth, Father, that may nurture us, Father Yahweh, and give us nutrition, Father Yahweh, to our spirit, our souls, Father Yahweh, because we need you 24/7, Father Yahweh. We know, Father, you know us in every little part of our body, and our mind, and our spirit, Father Yahweh. We know, Father, you want the vessel, Father Yahweh, to become righteous, Father Yahweh, because you are righteous, Father. Become holy, Father Yahweh, because you are holy, Father Yahweh. We know you wanted to lead us down the right path, because you are the light to our path, Father Yahweh, a light to our feet, Father Yahweh. So we give you thanks and praise, Father Yahweh. Allow us to see, Father Yahweh, in the direction we need to walk, Father Yahweh, because we know, Father Yahweh, that you want us to do right, Father, by us, by our brothers and sisters, Father Yahweh. Anyone to be coming our path, Father Yahweh. So we give you thanks and praise, Father, for allowing us, Father, to walk on your path. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this class, Father Yahweh. May it reach out to others, Father, for the four corners of the earth, Father Yahweh. And let them ponder you, Father Yahweh. Let them understand, Father, where they stand at right now, Father, to reach out to you, Father Yahweh. Because we know if they reach out to you, Father Yahweh, you will reach back, Father Yahweh. You say your hand is always stretched out to us still, Father Yahweh. So we give you thanks and praise, Father, for your honor and your love and your kindness, Father, and being so mindful of us, Father Yahweh. So praise you, Yeshua's holy and mighty name. Amen.
Amen.
What date is this?